It's time for 515 Fantasy Football.
I know football. Are you ready for some football?
Domination on Sundays begins with listening to these guys on Thursdays.
You ready for this?
Over 40 years of fantasy football experience between them.
Yeah!
One is a proud veteran of the United States Marine Corps, husband and father, entering his 18th year of fantasy competition. Brian Eikenberry. The other, also a proud husband and father, is one of the winningest fantasy minds in the state. Celebrating 24 years of excellence. Andy Hall.
Let's get the game on!
It's showtime. The 515 Fantasy Football Show with your hosts, Andy Hall and Brian Eikenberry.
Another step closer to draft day. Another day closer to games that matter. Hello, fantasy freaks. Welcome to the 515 Fantasy Football Show. Andy Hall joined, as always, by Brian Eikenberry. Great to see you, my friend.
And you as well. I'm glad we got a little taste of some fake football action here this last week.
Doesn't it feel good to know that there are no weekends between now and February where there will be no football?
Yeah, I'm super excited. Wife is not, but I'm sure my doctor visits will show the results.
My wife has been widowed already. I'm not the only one. A slightly shorter show today with the Chicago Cubs pregame preempting us about 15 minutes early. We have a jam-packed show again today despite less time. Going to condense all of it down over the next hour and 45 minutes, give or take, including a look at fantasy rookies for those of you in dynasty leagues. Also, we'll look at two opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of draft strategy. One I've dubbed the boring draft, and the other the high upside draft. We've got the pop quiz, and we'll talk handcuffs as well, all upcoming. But first, always like to begin with some headlines of fantasy note. Beginning in New England, Rob Gronkowski survived a minor scare in practice early this week. He should be fine, it appears.
Yeah, well, so here's an interesting question. If the number one tight end was gone, what do you do from here on out? So that's huge fantasy impact there. Normally it's not, but Gronk is mega.
I don't even want to talk about the fact that Rob Gronkowski might, miss time, significant time. We've only seen that once over the course of his career. It was a few years ago, if you remember. And, boy, it really did change things quite a bit. I think that was the one year I actually grabbed him in the first round of my draft.
Whoops.
And look what happened. Yeah, it was against everything I had done previous to that. And the one time I gave it a whirl, it kicked me right in the butt. Also fine, not just Rob Gronkowski, rookie wide receiver Malcolm Mitchell, who impressed in his first preseason action, but suffered a pretty nasty-looking dislocated elbow in that game, but appears, Brian, as though he'll be okay as well. Did you watch any of that game?
No, I did not. I did catch some of it on the NFL Network later on, some of the replays, but I definitely don't like watching injuries because dislocated elbows make me want to puke.
That goes for broken legs in the Olympics.
Yeah,
and all
that's
those other,
terrible
oh my
too.
God, maybe they should just replay the Lawrence Taylor, Joe Theismann injury again.
Oh
for
man,
Cripe's
I
sake.
just can't deal with it.
I mean, they must have gone over that thing 100 times or more when it happened. Continuing on here with some headlines, Dorial Green-Beckham is now a Philadelphia Eagle, traded from the Tennessee Titans, and this was kind of like a whoa. Where'd that come from?
Yeah, this was something that, we just talked about it, that he's the only receiving option there in Tennessee. And to come to find out that they just dumped him because he wasn't putting the effort into preseason games, which is kind of telling of the new regime that's there, and we're not taking slack off of anybody, and you're going to have to perform and earn your spot.
So we'll see if he has any impact whatsoever in Philadelphia. If anything, he might nudge a couple of those bubble roster guys in Eagles territory off of the roster. Those who comes to mind right off the top of my head? Would that be Hakeem Nicks? Is he trying out for Philadelphia?
He might be, but I was just thinking more implications of him pushing Jordan Matthews to perform.
Or was it Reuben Randall? Might have been
Ruben Randall.
That's the one. Yeah, well, Ruben Randall might be one of those on the bubble now if Dorial Greenback comes out of there. Yeah. I can't believe that. No Big Ben, Le'Veon Bell, D'Angelo Williams, or Antonio Brown in the Steelers' second preseason game. I'm hoping, Brian, that we at least get a look at some of these guys, if not all of them, in the third preseason game, because this is getting kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, the whole safety first mentality is really proving to be pretty prominent in the preseason. They still have to get some kind of work, so I'd expect for him to come out for one drive.
Seahawks beat reporter suggests Christine Michael could steal 6 to 8 touches per game from Thomas Rawls. What's your thought on the Seattle backfield in general?
If you asked me 6 months ago, I would have been all Thomas Rawls. But the more you see and the more is written about, kind of makes you pump the brakes a little bit. Not that he's still the guy, but when you already start talking about, well, they're going to start stealing touches, hey, your ADP drops a little bit for me, pal.
We're going to have some opportunity to argue Seahawks running backs a little later on in the program. Panthers quarterback Cam Newton believes Devin Funchess could outproduce Kelvin Benjamin in 2016. Thoughts on that headline?
No, there's no thought on that.
Why not? Why can't he do it?
Yardage or touchdowns?
I don't think he was specific. I just think he thought that Devin Funchess could outproduce Kelvin Benjamin. That's the quote.
No. I'm just going to say no because Kelvin Benjamin is a freaking animal, man.
What about Ted Ginn?
Ted Ginn.
Consider what he did last year.
Okay, but consider what he did the 7 years prior to that.
Okay.
Fastest man in football, right? Isn't that what his moniker was for a while?
Just saying, don't write him off, right? Jamal Charles has been removed from the PUP list, which is great news there in Kansas City. Cowboys owner Jerry Jones hinted he is no longer in the market for a backup QB, and that does not surprise me considering the performance of one Dak Prescott in game number 1 of the Dallas Cowboys preseason.
Looked like a champ. Definitely, you know what? Worth someone putting on your watch list for when about week 4 rolls around and Romo hurts his sternum or something.
I think it was a clavicle.
I don't know.
Or I don't remember.
Yeah.
He's just perpetually hurt, or has been. Patriots head coach Bill Belichick had some very nice things to say about Martellus Bennett. That in itself is a headline, I figure. The fact that he had something nice to say about anybody.
I would say that he had something nice to say about anybody, or that he spoke for more than 4 words per answer regarding the press. That's the headline there.
I think it was 4 words, actually. He is very nice. Next question. Raiders head coach Jack Del Rio said one of the team's goals this year is to increase Latavius Murray's carries. I mean, he had a pretty healthy amount of touches last season. Thoughts on Latavius Murray as perhaps a mid-round sleeper?
Yeah, I definitely. So I'm going to play some of my cards here. He was somebody that I was looking at in a lot of drafts that somebody may not be putting at the top of their list. The whole Raiders organization in general, that offense is really taking I believe is going to take a legitimate step forward. So some of my pre-scouting reports was Latavius Murray, and hoping we didn't have to talk about him on the show so that way nobody uses him against me.
Nothing ever gets past you. You should know that. When you signed up for this gig, Brian, you can't keep secrets.
Yeah,
and you know that
can't
your
keep
league
secrets.
mates are going to be listening to you.
Yes.
They're going to know all your deepest, darkest secrets. You got to let it all hang out here, or else this doesn't work.
I got to
friend.
change my name and come in a disguise
now,
or something.
Now you're talking. This is radio, remember, so you can change anything you want, pal. Continuing on with a couple more headlines here. Niners quarterback Colin Kaepernick is dealing with what's called a dead arm.
I don't even get it.
This is an official thing, apparently. Dead arm.
Is it fatigue?
Apparently, but the way that they put it, dead arm.
Dead arm. Like a wet noodle out there or something.
Like he slept on it wrong?
Yeah,
or
is it a
sat
sleep
on it
still,
till it
or
went to, till it
nerve
went to
damage
sleep
or something? Or
pins and needles?
Or he's just terrible and can't throw the ball.
Okay.
And you're just saying, well, he's just tired, so I don't know.
But I mean, my question, I guess, is like, okay, dead arm from what? Throwing too much in training camp? We haven't even made it to the regular
you haven't
season.
Even got to the season yet.
I don't get it.
Not drafting him anyways.
Well, I thought, because Chip Kelly is Chip Kelly. If the GM wants Blaine Gabbert to be the starting quarterback there in San Fran, it would be just like Chip Kelly to be like, actually, I'm going to start calling Kaepernick.
Yeah.
He's a contrarian, that guy.
Yeah, I was surprised he got a second shot.
I dig that about Chip Kelly. I think his team's going to be terrible this year.
Yes, it is.
ESPN reporting there remains no clarity on Ladarius Green's multitude of maladies, talking ankle, talking headaches. Does this guy just not want to play?
You know, you have to start to wonder at some point, are you hurt or are you injured? There's a difference.
The program.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
So I think it's a little bit of both. Maybe he's just kind of going to slack off. Who knows? Come week 1, it could be a completely different story.
I'd also like to wish Bruce Get Off My Lawn Arians the absolute best. Bruce was hospitalized the other night with some stomach ailments, and doctors were taking a look at him, so we do hope that Coach Arians is okay. He certainly got what should be a very exciting season ahead of him in Arizona. Stick around. We got a lot more still to talk about here on this episode of the 515 Fantasy Football Show. We'll do a couple of different kinds of drafts, two opposite ends of the spectrum, come to think of it, a boring draft and a high upside draft, and show you what the difference looks like. I also got that pop quiz looming large. We got the dynasty draft for those of you looking at rookies. We'll talk handcuffs very soon. And up next, what we learned from week 1 of the preseason in NFL action. Again, you are listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show. This is 1350 AM, ESPN Radio. Welcome back to the 515 Fantasy Football Show. Andy Hall, Brian Eikenberry. We have some games we can run down, Brian. Week 1 of the preseason happened.
It did. It did. A lot of people didn't know. I was the guy who started talking to some friends and was like, hey, did you see? And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, what, are you kidding me? Like, I'm getting the alerts on my phone. I'm checking the scoreboard. I'm seeing who's doing what, running through the box score on a lot of games. And I had nobody to talk to about it.
Friends, we got to get you more dedicated. I mean, get in on this now, because this is when you win fantasy championships, is when you are well prepared. And that's what we're here to help you with. So, again, thank you for being on board with us this time around. Of course, you can find us on iTunes and Stitcher, in addition to on the airwaves Thursdays at 11 a.m. on 1350 a.m. ESPN Radio in Des Moines. We have a Facebook page, 515 Fantasy Football. We invite you to check out. We also are on Twitter at 515 Fantasy. My personal handle at Andy Hall Radio, and Brian's at Ike FFB. That's IKEFFB. We begin with Atlanta and Washington, a final score of 23-17 in favor of the Atlanta Falcons. A pretty unremarkable game in which we learned absolutely nothing, Brian, which is really a depressing start to this segment.
Yeah, you didn't see much out of, Kirk Cousins was 5 for 5, so that's pretty cool. That was pretty much the only highlight I had. I was trying to get a good look at the running backs and kind of see what was going on there. Devonta Freeman was 5 carries, 9 yards.
Not very impressive. Tevin Coleman didn't do a whole lot. And to be honest, the Washington running backs all looked pretty terrible in this game too.
Yeah, there was one TD doled out to him, Robert Kelly. Other than that, I just kind of moved on from this one. No, nobody to watch here.
All right, let's move on to Philadelphia and Tampa Bay, a final score of 17-9 in favor of the Eagles. In terms of the Bucks, Winston looked pretty sharp in this one. 7 for 9, 97 yards and a touchdown. Conversely, on the other side of the ball, we got our first look at rookie Carson Wentz, who ended up getting hurt in the fourth quarter of the game, and showed some pretty basic rookie mistakes, I think, early on.
Yeah, that's just a part of it. The rookies are rookies. He did it, I think it was like a hairline fracture or something in a rib. Whoops. That's a whoops, but they got to get some game time, and Sam Bradford was going to be the starter for a little while anyways there. Tampa Bay's kicker got some work.
Yeah, no question about that. He's good to go for the season. Baltimore, Carolina, a final of 22-19, the Ravens over the Panthers, something I guarantee you would not see during the regular season. Speaking of Devin Funchess, who we hit on in the fantasy headlines, he scored a touchdown in this one. Graham Gano, their kicker, had 4 field goals. For Baltimore, an interesting thing I'm keeping an eye on is that running back situation, because there's lots of names there, Brian, and I think conventional wisdom would lead you to believe that Justin Forsett is probably the number one there, but Terrence West, it has been reported in multiple places, has impressed in training camp, and then, of course, you have the other guys, Buck Allen and is it Taliaferro, maybe the other one?
Kenneth
Kenneth Dixon's the rookie. So, I mean, here's the deal. You get Terrence West got a couple of touchdowns in this game. Dixon ran for 44 yards on 9 carries. What else stood out to you, if anything?
So I was really trying to watch Carolina's passing game. Cam came out 5 for 6, boom, in and out. There was nothing crazy there. I just like to watch how the offensive lines are really playing because they're out there for longer than one drive. You get an extended look at them and watch their pass blocking and stuff like that because regardless of who is back there, they still need to block and pass.
New England 34, New Orleans 22, high-scoring affair there. Jimmy Garoppolo, of course, played the majority of the game for entire first half, in fact, for the Patriots, and looked pretty darn good doing it, if I do say so myself. I was kind of fighting myself with the idea that Garoppolo could be somebody that Tom Brady owners should consider in those first 4 games of the season, but it appears, at least after this performance, that maybe he's a guy you should look at late in your draft.
Or that you should be sniping from a Tom Brady owner as they're coming through, and you've got your roster filled with starters. You haven't quite you may have grabbed a top tier quarterback. So you know what you might want to mess with somebody and snipe Garoppolo out of there.
Couple of touchdowns for Mark Ingram for the Saints. Rookie Michael Thomas looked real solid too, real sharp. 4 receptions, 67 yards on the night. New York Jets 17-13 over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Chris Ivory, definitely the goal line back. It looks as though my suspicions may end up happening there in Jacksonville, where it looks like Yeldon is the guy that's probably going to handle most of the work from 20 to 20, and then inside the red zone is probably all Chris Ivory all the time. What do you think?
Definitely a crushing blow, depending on how your league scores. Depending on the yardage situation per point, it is something that we will likely be talking about in the handcuff section.
Allen Robinson looks poised for a huge season. A lot of folks think he's going to regress from last year's monster numbers, but I think this guy is going to have just a stud year. I don't see if there's a regression, it's not going to be a big one.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I used to be a big proponent of everyone takes a step back. Defenses figure out how to play people. That's not so much in the wide receiver game because wide receivers know where they're supposed to be going.
Denver shutout. Oh, I should also wrap up with the Jets here. Ryan Fitzpatrick, having just stepped in from taking some time off, looked sharp in limited action. Bilal Powell as well. Looks like he might be a goal line type of back. Matt Forte never traditionally has been that type. So Powell could be a guy at the stripe that the Jets are looking to. Denver shut out Chicago 22-0. That defense is as good as advertised. Hasn't lost a step from last season. Mark Sanchez looks like the starter here. I will say that in deep leagues, really deep leagues, and in dynasty drafts in particular, you're going to want to probably take a look at that talented rookie quarterback of theirs.
Yeah, I don't see a problem here with focusing on some of Denver's early guys. Paxton Lynch, 6 for 7. Like, why not? Why not? Granted, situations are situations, but he didn't blow it, so keep that in mind.
The only note for the Bears here, aside from looking dreadful all night long, was Kevin White made his first catch as an NFL pro. Won't go in the books, however, seeing as it's a preseason game, but, nice to see him get his hands on a ball finally. Miami 27, New York Giants 10. Nothing really interesting on the Miami side of the ball. The Giants, though, I kept a close eye on Sterling Shepard. He looked pretty impressive in his debut. He made one really nice catch down the sideline and looks to be a guy that I think Eli Manning could probably count on in certain situations, considering that he's got Odell Beckham on one side of the field. And I just don't think the Giants know what they've got in Victor Cruz health-wise, so...
No, Cruz is definitely that wild card there, so watching Shepard is a plus. I was also trying to get a grasp on that rushing game, but they had 9 or 10 people touch the ball.
Yeah.
And none of it made sense, and then I realized it's like an elephant graveyard in their backfield.
Lions 30, Steelers 17. Could Zach Zenner be a factor in Detroit? I think that's a question worth asking, Brian. Amir Abdullah seems to be the guy they're going to give the rock to as the starter, but Zach Zenner could at least be a handcuff, couldn't he?
He did the same thing last year. He in the preseason, he just tore it up, and then he was put on the shelf for emergency use only. I'm hoping that was kind of their plan, and they're going to start bringing him into the fold a little bit more. I'm not big trusting here in the Lions' backfield.
Yeah, very. That's a tough one, man. For folks that had high hopes for Amir Abdullah, I'm just not sure I'm seeing it just yet, but there's plenty of time to make his case. On the Pittsburgh side of the ball, nothing much of note here aside from 2 lost fumbles by Sammy Coates, a guy that a lot of people had high hopes for there in that wide receiver core. Maybe it will be a Marcus Wheaton. You watch Marcus Wheaton have just a monster year. I've been saying all along, we know what Marcus Wheaton is. Nothing all that impressive. Sammy Coates probably the guy, and then watch Wheaton's going to have a huge year. You watch.
Very possible.
Mark my word. Vikings 17, Bengals 16. Treadwell fitting right in that Vikings offense, doing exactly what I think they drafted him to do. Charles Johnson scored the touchdown for the Vikes on a nice long pass from Teddy Bridgewater. On the Bengals side, Dalton looks sharp. McCarron looks like a very viable backup quarterback. So things look like they're nice and steady there, both in Minnesota and in Cincinnati. Packers 17, Browns 11. Ain't it like the Browns to hang a score like 11 in an NFL game?
Good point.
Eddie Lacy is about the only Packer of note that played. He looked pretty solid in this one. Robert Griffin III, no surprise to anybody, looked really shaky. Terrell Pryor, oddly enough, looks the part at wide receiver in Cleveland. Did you catch any of that?
No, I didn't. The one thing that stood out to me was McCown was 1 for 4. We'd been talking about why is he not the starter? Well, maybe they know something we don't.
Raiders 31, Cardinals 10. The Raiders running game looks very good. You alluded to Latavius Murray a bit ago. David Johnson on the Arizona side shines on a 23-yard scamper and made a couple of guys miss on that one and reminded us all why he should probably be a first-round selection, probably a top 5 selection depending on your scoring format in your league. Seahawks 17, Chiefs 16. Christine Michael averaged 6.3 yards per carry on 7 carries. Not a whole lot else to note in that Seattle game, or for Seattle, I should say. For the Chiefs, Spencer Ware looks like the backup role. I think he solidified that in this game.
That would have been nice to know last year when I took Charkandrick West over Spencer Ware. But hey,
Sharknado, you know West.
Yeah, the Sharknado. That's pretty cool. So hey, think about it, Spencer Ware.
Colts 19, Bills 18. Neither team really showed much in this game, and well, that's one we can probably just skip right over.
You can put it to bed.
And then finally, Los Angeles, the Rams 28, Cowboys 24. Seeing as you didn't see any Todd Gurley of note, Benny Cunningham was the guy who got a lot of work in this game, and at the stripe looked pretty good, scored a touchdown. Again, on the Dallas side, we alluded to Dak Prescott earlier. He looks like he's going to be a solid backup to Tony Romo. Des Bryant looked like a beast out there, and it's just preseason game number 1, my man.
Dirty Des.
I know that I say don't overreact when it comes to early season.
Geez, listen
Certainly not preseason, man. You just don't want to go absolutely crazy. But, those were your games in week 1. We look forward to having our eyes on week 2 and hopefully see a little bit closer what teams are going to actually look like once the NFL season begins here in just a few weeks. Brian, we're going to be back in just a bit. Again, a couple of drafts, getting you ready for those, one of which I've dubbed the boring draft, the other one the high upside draft. Basically like 2 opposite ends of the spectrum, and we're going to take a look at those 2 teams and compare and contrast. You've got your pop quiz on the way. We're going to talk rookies, fantasy rookies, and a dynasty draft upcoming as well. But up next, the idea of the fantasy handcuff and who are the best ones to consider when you're getting into your draft situation. You are listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show. This is 1350 AM ESPN Radio. You can also catch our show on iTunes and Stitcher. We'll be back in just a bit. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio, also on iTunes and Stitcher. Andy Hall, Brian Eikenberry, over 40 years of fantasy experience, numerous championships, several opponents bested, and we're here to help you do the same. That is the name of the game, is it not, my friend?
It is. And just a little quick reminder, if you do have any questions, you have any topics you want us to cover, or any kind of interaction that you think you need or advice that you need for your fantasy roster, make sure to hit us up on Facebook, Twitter. You know the addresses. Just reach out and let us know what you need.
It also helps us out a lot if you got us on iTunes in particular, if you rate and or review the show. That basically just helps our visibility, if I'm being quite honest with you. Folks easier to find our show. Our show becomes bigger and better, and, that's better for all of us because we want more championships.
That's right. We love hearing from people and how we help them, and the way we can do that is increasing our visibility.
Let's talk handcuffs, Brian, because this was a concept that I shunned for a very long time. I always thought most players just had standalone value, but it turns out that in some situations, handcuffs actually do matter.
Oh, you mean fantasy football handcuffs? I should probably put these pink ones away then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I think people shun the handcuff because they've been burned by the handcuff. They didn't understand it. They didn't really see it as more of an insurance. They were kind of betting on it, and they might have felt like they wasted a pick. But it wasn't the handcuff. It was just a team or the player that they picked to choose. You don't just throw your handcuffs out there and just cast a wide net. You have to be very selective. You have to think about it. It's a process.
2015 gave us perhaps the greatest example ever of where a fantasy handcuff and the idea works is when Le'Veon Bell goes down with a season-ending injury and D'Angelo Williams steps right in and finishes the season as a top 5 running back at his position in pretty much all scoring leagues. So, again, I think that's probably one of the top of the list here in 2016 is owning D'Angelo Williams if you're a Le'Veon Bell owner.
Yeah, it was huge. I know in most of my leagues, we're onto it. We know how to use it. And those last 4 picks are a race to who can snag the right handcuff at the right opportunity. Because if you were that person who had a decent running back core and you nailed that handcuff, you win. You win. I mean, there is no other better, cleaner way to say it than you win.
So I'm going to run down the running back position. I'm going to go team by team here. I'm going to name off 2 guys. I'm going to name off the starter and his presumed handcuff. You tell me if it's a handcuff worth considering in drafts or not.
Deal.
Yes or no is all I need from you.
Okay.
I will agree or disagree.
Here we go. This is like warm-up pop to the pop quiz.
A little bit. We got a couple segments before we get there. All right, ready?
Yes.
Arizona. David Johnson's the starter. Chris Johnson's the handcuff.
No.
I say yes. Look at what Chris Johnson was able to achieve last year. This is a high-scoring offense,
yes.
A good offensive line,
yes.
And Chris Johnson, provided he can stay healthy, is a valuable handcuff you can get super late. I don't even see him in ADP in some drafts.
No, and I think that's because of the durability of the starter.
Agreed. Devontae Freeman, Tevin Coleman.
Nope.
I agree. LaShawn McCoy, Mike Gillislee.
Yes.
I say no. Why do you say yes?
I'm not a big Shady fan. He's got a lot of touches on him. At some point, the wheels are going to come off, and you're going to need somebody to step in and fill those shoes.
And that might be Carlos Williams if he can ever drop the weight.
Stop
eating them White Castle hamburgers. Jeremy Langford, Jordan Howard.
It's the Bears. I would say no.
I say no. Jordan Howard's pretty much a goal line back, if anything. I don't think he's going to be much of a handcuff. Jeremy Hill, Giovanni Bernard.
Yes.
I say no. I say they're standalone value.
Oh,
You draft them separately as separate players, and you can start them separately. You're not going to want them on the same team. That'll drive you crazy all year long.
That would totally, yeah. Okay.
So he is not a handcuff, Brian.
But unless you're sniping, then it's okay.
Okay. Ezekiel Elliott, Alfred Morris.
Yeah. Well,
you think there's enough left in Morris's tank?
No, I
don't.
That was a knee-jerk reaction. I don't get these questions ahead of time, so I'll change it to no.
Good. Amir Abdullah, Zach Zenner.
Yes.
I disagree.
I think Zenner has the talent to be able to perform at a high level, and I don't believe in Abdullah.
Will the coaches give him that opportunity? That is the question. In Green Bay, Eddie Lacy, James Starks.
Yes.
Okay. I would agree with that, even though I think Starks looked kind of pedestrian last year. He's had some flashes, but last year didn't look that great. Frank Gore, Josh Ferguson.
No.
Yeah, I agree. Ferguson's an unproven rookie. Chris Ivory, TJ Yeldon.
No.
I say no. I think this is almost like the Hill Bernard thing, where they're kind of standalone values.
Yeah, and that would be low on Chris Ivory's value.
Jamal Charles, Spencer Ware.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
As referenced by last year, what happened.
Yeah, I would put that right behind Le'Veon Bell and
definitely.
D'Angelo Williams. Todd Gurley, Benny Cunningham.
I'm going to go yes, just based off of our previous segment's discussion.
I'm going to say no. Who the hell's Benny
terrible.
Cunningham? Arian Foster, Jay Ajayi.
Yes.
I haven't seen enough from Ajayi yet, but I think there's enough intrigue there where if Foster goes down, it's going to be him and pretty much nobody else. I think Damian Williams is still on roster.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about Ajayi last year.
Yeah.
So I would say yes.
Mark Ingram, Tim Hightower.
No.
Okay. I like Hightower.
I like
he's
him
a
too, but Ingram's
very
a
interesting
stud.
sleeper. So I'm going to disagree there. Because he can also catch the ball, like Mark Ingram.
Whatever.
Rashad Jennings, Paul Perkins.
No.
Okay. Matt Forte, Bilal Powell.
I'm going to say no.
I rank this one probably fourth.
Really?
Yep.
I
have one I
see
think
if-
that's more important, but this one's pretty important because Bilal Powell showed last year that he can be a starting running back.
But you have Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker. The majority of that offense is through the air if Forte goes down.
Not going to disagree with you there, but I just think Bilal Powell, he's one of my big sleepers this year, and I hope everybody's paying attention.
You
Bilal
like
Powell,
sleeping.
big fan of sleeping. I don't get enough of it. Latavius Murray, DeAndre Washington.
No.
I say yes.
I don't even know who that is.
DeAndre Washington, very talented rookie running back for Oakland.
Yeah.
I
no.
say that's a run-heavy offense for the most part, and I think that they're going to give DeAndre Washington the ball if Latavius goes down. I will take DeAndre Washington.
You take him. I'm going to hold you to
I
it.
like him. Le'Veon Bell, D'Angelo Williams, we already discussed. All right, here's a three-headed monster for you to consider. Thomas Rawls, Christine Michael, Alex Collins.
So I'm going to say no, based off of you don't know what's going on anywhere in any way, shape, or form. You can draft two handcuffs.
No, but if I draft Rawls, which I'm not looking to do in any of my drafts, I would probably grab Alex Collins with the last pick of my draft since nobody else will take him.
Interesting.
Yep, I don't believe in Christine Michael
I'm going to
at
snipe
all.
you.
You feel free. I can't wait till you have that opportunity. I will laugh at you. Doug Martin, Charles Sims.
Yeah, actually. Totally.
This is probably my third most valuable handcuff in the NFL.
Sims has proven himself.
He has. He can do it. He can handle the load. He runs with purpose. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. We've seen him do everything Doug Martin can do.
Yep.
And finally, Adrian Peterson, Jerick McKinnon.
No.
I agree, and here's why. Because McKinnon could be, eventually, a standalone value. That guy's a weapon, but they just aren't using him enough yet.
Yeah, there's no way AP is going to give up carries to somebody else.
Here's a question for you. Are there any non-running backs you would consider handcuffs? I have some in mind in case you don't have
Not
any.
without lengthy thought. We don't have the time for me to think about that, but let's just discuss what you have.
The wide receiver position is tough. I'll grant you that, okay? So
So are you talking number 1, number 2, or number 1, number 3?
okay.
Because I could give you an example right off the top of my head right now where
Give me what you have in your head and then I'll explain.
so if it's number 1, number 3, I mean, you could just based on my own Homer type thought process, is you have to look at someone like Bolden. I mean, if you're going 1-3, Marvin Jones, Bolden, why not?
You'd have to be a big Lions fan.
I am a big Lions
What,
fan.
what I had in mind, Brian, was something like Rob Gronkowski and Martellus Bennett.
Oh, okay. So I see what you're doing.
So if Gronkowski goes down, owning Bennett is an insurance policy because we've seen Bennett, albeit early in the season, then he kind of disappears every year, but we've seen him produce.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see that as a legitimate handcuff.
Quarterbacks, any of those? I think maybe Garoppolo. We were onto something earlier. If you're a Brady owner, maybe you grab Garoppolo with one of your last picks. I mean, 4-game suspension, and if anything happens
your
to
Cowboys situation. Whoever, if you're a Romo owner, you should probably draft his backup.
Dak Prescott.
Yeah, that's a legitimate one there.
Both of those. I mean, I think with the Patriots, more of a run-heavy system than in Dallas. I think there's a balance there. But I think Dak Prescott, I mean, after one, I don't want to overdo it here, but I think he looked really impressive in that first preseason game. So
It's all about composure.
Indeed. Got a lot still to come. That pop quiz is just one segment away, Brian.
I smell it.
It's going to be so much fun. Up next, though, we're going to talk fantasy rookies and produce for you a 2-round dynasty draft. That's coming up next. 515 Fantasy Football on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. Thank you for tuning in to the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio in Des Moines, also on iTunes and Stitcher. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eikenberry. We are talking fantasy football. And this segment is all about fantasy rookies. Now, Brian, this will be your first opportunity to play in a dynasty league. You've joined with me and some of my friends, and this is a league I've been involved with for a long time. So you have to pay attention to rookies because we draft them separate from everybody else.
Yes.
And we also get our rookies that we pick for 3 years.
Which is exciting.
At a discounted rate as well.
Which is excellent, especially if you have the first pick in the rookie draft.
If you have the first pick in a rookie draft, it should be no question to anybody who you're taking.
Yeah, I'm taking Zeke.
Ezekiel Elliott, running back, Dallas.
Awesome.
Well, he's awesome because I think his ceiling is out of this world. I mean, he could be the next Adrian Peterson, theoretically.
Yeah, that's how I viewed him.
And his floor is relatively safe, provided he can stay healthy. And we also know what system they've got there in Dallas. It's very conducive to creating a running back monster. We saw what happened with DeMarco Murray just 2 seasons ago.
Yep.
We've seen other running backs thrive there in Dallas. But this is a real opportunity here. And, you know, when you're in a dynasty league and you're going to get this guy for a lot cheaper than you're going to get most superstars in the NFL, these auctions, some of these guys they cost a pretty penny, let me just say. So the fact that you get that first pick and you're going to take Ezekiel Elliott, it's just the right spot.
I'm super excited because then if you understand the draft process, then you can make him a tag 1 year, restricted free agent, a whole bunch of fun stuff.
Yeah, you have to wait till his rookie contract expires, so he'll go 3 years there, and once it expires, you have the opportunity to place a restricted free agent tag on him. Or if it's the right year, you could place a franchise tag on him and get him for 3 more years.
It actually will be the right year.
Oh, you've already looked into this, have you?
Yeah, and if it's not, I quit and I'm leaving.
Son of a gun. You just want him for life.
That's right.
That's the deal. Well, I'm going to do the same thing to you in the league that I just joined that you commish because I have taken over the worst team in the league and I have the number 1 pick and I'm probably going to take Ezekiel Elliott. So there you have it. I would say the second pick in a rookie draft, if Ezekiel Elliott is the consensus number 1, I'm going to give it to Corey Coleman, Cleveland, wide receiver. And the reason I'm going to give it to Corey is because he could put up wide receiver 1 numbers in Cleveland this year as a rookie, and then many to come. This guy's physically gifted. He's got great hands. He runs great routes. The only question is who's going to be throwing him the ball.
Well, and so that is the big question. But what I look in that situation is who else is there to compete with him, and will he be in the opportunity to develop a rapport? Who's he been catching with in training camp? I mean, it only really applies to this year, but hey, you can't teach tall, you can't teach big. So in the wide receiver category, that's really what matters.
Imagine if Josh Gordon can keep his nose clean.
Oh, man, I'm so excited.
And maybe, you know, I alluded to Terrell Pryor earlier, and he looked pretty good in that wide receiver slot in the first preseason game of the season. Imagine if you have those 3 on the field together. Cleveland all of a sudden goes from like, who the heck cares, turn this off, to, wow, this is like, dare I say, like the 1998 Minnesota Vikings all over again.
Oh, good Lord.
You know, 3 deep, man. Randy Moss, Chris Carter, Jake Reed, bring it on.
Oh,
they need their Randall Cunningham. They don't have that. Come on, man. I'm a Vikings fan. What can I say? Anyway, speaking of the Vikings, I think the next pick, the third pick of a rookie draft, Laquan Treadwell should probably be that guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big body, ball control, led the SEC in a majority of receiving categories during his time at Ole Miss. I just don't see how you can miss with that pick.
Yeah, it is about can they catch? Can they catch? You know, they can get better. They can be better route runners. They can be better things like that later on. But if they have a problem with drops, they're always going to have a problem with drops.
It's not like there's a big standout receiver there in Minnesota. I mean, Stephon Diggs showed some flashes as a rookie last season. Then, of course, you have Charles Johnson, who was hurt much of last year, but looked good in that first preseason game, scoring a touchdown this year. Laquan Treadwell, probably my third pick. If I had a fourth pick, it would be Michael Thomas, wide receiver of New Orleans, who you mentioned a bit ago.
Yeah, he's looking pretty sharp. And, yes, it's preseason, but when you look at a receiver and how they're making the catches, are they laying out? Are they putting it all out there on the line? And he is someone who is definitely showing the effort early.
For the fifth pick, another wide receiver off the board. This one, Sterling Shepard, the New York Giants. Because Cruz can't stay healthy, I think Shepard's an excellent route runner, great hands. He fits that McAdoo offense to a T, and he's going to look real good lining up opposite Odell Beckham.
That, and you have a stable quarterback position, someone who's been in that system for a long time, been in that city for a long time. You know Eli's trying to teach him the right way to do business.
The sixth pick of the first round, and again, this is a 12-team dynasty, so we're going to go through 12 picks twice. And remember, most rookie drafts, they're not snake. You go 1 through 12, 1 through 12. So the worst team gets two of the...
Super excited about that.
Yeah, I bet you are. So our first running back will be off the board here at pick number 6. And for me, that's Derrick Henry, Tennessee. A huge guy, runs with power, runs with anger. Could be a nice compliment to DeMarco Murray and this exotic smash mouth offense they've got going on there.
Yeah, and well, for me, it's about how long is DeMarco Murray going to actually be there. You get that rookie for 3 years. You grab him now. Who cares if he sits for a year? You'll have him come next year.
Kenneth Dixon, another running back. He'll be pick number 7. Baltimore Ravens, a real chance to stand out among that those Baltimore runners, and I think most of them are pedestrian at best. Team 8, Josh Doxson, wide receiver Washington, prototypical wide receiver body and hands. Good opportunity to stand out there among an aging wide receiver corps. Pierre Garçon was out there catching passes at age 86, and Deshaun Jackson's at least 75 at this point, isn't he?
Just begging for youth and begging for someone to take over as the lead dog there.
Paul Perkins, running back New York Giants. He's pick number 9. An aging Rashad Jennings. This is a guy who could surprise theoretically in 2016 because there's just nobody else. And that's a really good offense already.
But they don't lend themselves to running backs. And that's the thing that kind of makes me go, come on, maybe just one.
Will Fuller, wide receiver, Houston, pick number 10. An opportunity to start opposite DeAndre Hopkins. This dude's got crazy speed and likely will never be doubled because they're going to be focusing much of their attention on DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, I think this guy's success has a lot to do with Hopkins' success. The better Hopkins is, kind of like the Calvin Johnson effect. He makes other people around him better because defense have to game plan for that specific receiver so you benefit.
Team 11 will take running back Jordan Howard of Chicago, looking like a goal line guy, at least initially, but if Jeremy Langford disappoints or, gets hurt, I think Jordan Howard's a good guy that can step in there in that Chicago offense.
Yep, it's more of an insurance pick. If Langford doesn't pan out, you've got him for 3 years.
Pick number 12, DeAndre Washington, running back Oakland. We mentioned him a while back. I think there's no question if Latavius Murray goes down, this is your insurance policy. And, boy, he wasn't the only one that was running all over the place for Oakland in that first preseason game. So apparently a bevy of running backs there in Oakland that they can rely on. I got to bust through. I was going to make this a 2-round draft. I think we're going to have to condense it down to just one because I don't think we're going to have time to get through all of these. Some guys that we left off the board. How about we just do that?
Sure.
Tyler Boyd, a guy to look at, wide receiver from Cincinnati. A nice compliment to A.J. Green. Probably will see targets immediately in that Cincinnati offense.
No one left.
Jared Goff, quarterback St. Louis, if you want to take a guy who might be a project, I don't think he's going to do it immediately. I don't even know if he'll be the starter in week 1, but did I say St. Louis? I meant Los Angeles.
It's tricky.
I knew it was going to happen. Darn it. Devontae Booker, a running back out of Denver, is a guy I might have considered in the first 12 picks. Broncos really like this guy, and it might take some time to surpass Anderson and Hillman. But once this guy's up to speed, I think the sky's the limit for Devontae Booker. Josh Ferguson is a running back out of Indianapolis. Frank Gore's backup and should be his successor when he decides to give it up at the age of 874. There can be only one.
Oh, man, it was one of my favorite shows.
Frank Gore's like the Highlander.
It was one of my favorite. I loved it. Duncan McLeod, man, awesome.
On the back of Gore's jersey, it should say McLeod. Look, McLeod. How great would that be? Carson Wentz, quarterback, Philadelphia, another guy to consider in dynasty rookie drafts. Keith Marshall, running back, Washington, another guy as well. Matt Jones, disappointed in that first preseason game. We'll see if that continues and continue to monitor that situation. Boy, Brian, I could talk dynasty rookies all day long.
I wanted to talk Highlander all day long now.
Well, we can do that too. Maybe we'll have like a bonus podcast that we can post later or something. You know what time it is, my friend. Getting to be about that time.
It's that time for the pop quiz of Rudy, huh?
That's right, buddy. Going to throw 3 really, really difficult questions at Brian. Unscripted, unprepared for, off the top of his head, and then I'm going to come in and tell him why he's wrong.
Fantastic.
Isn't that the way it goes? The pop quiz is on deck. You're listening to 515 Fantasy Football on ESPN Radio. The 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio, on iTunes and Stitcher as well. Andy Hall alongside Brian Eikenberry. And it's that time of the show where I like to take 3 really difficult fantasy-related questions, fire them at Brian, let him answer unprepared and unscripted, and tell him why he's wrong.
I think we need a Facebook poll on this question. Was Brian right? And just yes or no, pretty simple. So make sure you head out to 515 Fantasy Football on Facebook and give us a like and come vote on our poll.
I've been lobbying for that for a couple of weeks now. Nobody's stepped up.
I have. People know I'm right.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
You can also find us on Twitter at 515 Fantasy, my personal page at Andy Hall Radio. Brian's is at Ike, IKEFFB. Question number 1 in today's pop quiz, Brian.
Deal.
Beast mode has been replaced by a 4-headed monster. Thomas Rawls, Christine Michael, CJ Procise, Alex Collins. Do any of these 4 men reach at least 50% of the team's rushing attempts, like Marshawn Lynch did in his last several healthy seasons?
I will say yes. I think it will be Rawls. For how long? I don't know. And that's the bad news about Rawls is he's not going to get a lot of opportunity to shine. If he starts out good but then kind of sputters and stutters a little bit, they're going to start cutting those carries up. So that's a little unfair to Rawls, but buyer beware.
The correct answer is yes.
Yeah.
Thomas Rawls.
I was right.
Even with the threat of Russell Wilson stealing some opportunities, and that's one thing you might not have factored in there, Lynch was as reliable a workhorse as fantasy football had in the early to mid-2010s. Head coach Pete Carroll traditionally always preferred a bell cow approach there in Seattle when he has a running back with the tools necessary to handle, at the very least, the first and second down plays. Rawls definitely fits that mold after what we saw of him last year before he got hurt. Michael may get a few carries here or there, as you heard in the headlines today. Procise looks like strictly a third down guy. Collins is probably Rawls' insurance policy, taken as a rookie this year. But yeah, Thomas Rawls likely to get at least 50% of the team's rushing attempts this season. That is a very, very good job out of you, Brian.
1 for 1. I quit.
I don't think you've ever gone 3 for 3, have you?
In my head, I did.
Uh-huh. All right. Question number 2. Last Saturday, we witnessed Tennessee Titans running backs turn 33 opportunities into 288 rushing yards against the San Diego Chargers. Now, to put those numbers into perspective, the Titans' leading rusher in 2015 was Antonio Andrews, who on the season rushed for only 520 yards. In 2014, it was Bishop Sankey with 569 yards. Will the Tennessee Titans have a 1,000-yard rusher in 2016?
They've never had a better opportunity since CJ2K left to have this opportunity. So I will say yes just because of who it is.
And who would that be, Brian?
DeMarco Murray.
The answer is DeMarco Murray.
Absolutely.
Provided he can stay healthy, head coach Mike Mularkey's exotic smash mouth style of offense plays right into the hands of 2014's rushing champ, simplifying the playbook, placing quarterback Marcus Mariota under center more often, and allowing Murray to run downhill rather than laterally, as he was forced to do last season in Philadelphia. For as explosive as rookie Derrick Henry looked in his first preseason action, it'll likely be a while before he sees the field on an extended basis. You've got to be super nervous right now because you're 2 for 2.
Yeah, I'm 2 for 2, confident this is in the bag.
Question number 3.
He's got a smirk on his face. It's terrible.
Rob Gronkowski's current ADP in standard leagues is pick number 13. Should his ADP be sooner or later than that, Brian? It's a 50-50.
In standard leagues, I would say yes.
That's not one of the options, Brian. The question is, should his ADP be sooner or later than pick 13?
Sooner. So yes would mean sooner.
But why?
Because the tight
I just
end...
want to know if you got it right. That's all you care about.
No, I like having the opportunity to justify my reason. The tight end in standard league is required. You have one opportunity to fill that tight end role with a stud who is always going to produce. The second, third, fourth best tight ends are light years behind him. So you compare that to the top 5 running backs, the top 5 wide receivers, that difference. If you get the number 1 or number 5 wide receiver, it's not too big of a difference. Number 1 tight end to number 5 tight end is about 752 points, give or take.
Not counting 2013 when Gronk only played in a total of 7 games due to injury, he has caught 341 passes for 4,963 yards and 61 touchdowns. That's an average of over 68 receptions, nearly 1,000 yards receiving, and over 12 touchdowns per season. Throw those numbers into the wide receiver position at year's end, and in 2015, he was number 11 wide receiver.
Not bad.
In 2014, he was number 12 wide receiver. Because he's undeniably bankable at the tight end position, you alluded to that, outscoring everyone else by such a margin, you also alluded to that. I say the answer is sooner. Gronk is first-round material.
3 for 3, bud.
Brian has never gone 3 for 3.
Smoked it.
We are going to give you now an opportunity to gloat on the air right now.
I take a lot of ginkgo biloba, no sleep, and excessive work hours. And that is what it makes to be a pop quiz champion. Thank you.
That wasn't gloating.
No, I'm just letting people know what they need to do to be a champ like me.
Well, I mean, you've taken the correct first step in listening to this program.
Yeah, that. You could grow a goatee. That makes you sexy and smarter, too. At least that's what I'm told.
So where's an ideal spot to take Gronk? Let's say you're pick number 4. Would you take Gronk at 4?
No, I wouldn't take Gronk at 4. However, if I'm 10, 11, 12, I'm probably taking Gronk. And, oh, man, because when you peel that sticker off or however you draft, you peel that sticker off at 10 and it's Gronk. Oh, man.
It's always that, like, really bright sticker, too. It's like a bright orange.
It's like, I was going to say, it's either orange or yellow, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, because the running backs get, like, a cool blue color, or, like, wide receivers get red. And then you have, like, this really bright, like, deer hunter orange color. It's the tight end position. And they're like, is he taking a kicker in the first round?
Yeah, and you peel that tight end, you hit that sticker pile, and you know it's trouble.
So 10 is, like, the earliest you'd consider him, because if you look at that first round, like, the reason I threw 4 at you, honestly, is because most drafts are going Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham, Julio Jones. After that, it's sort of like whoever you want.
Yeah, because I mean, if you look at the receiving yards, just like you said, just about 1,000 per game. But you're looking at guys,
that's a lot per game.
Well, per season, pretty awesome.
68 receptions, nearly 1,000 yards, and 12 touchdowns per season.
Yeah,
every season except for the one that he got hurt and only played 7 games.
So you can't really put him above the top 5 receivers or running backs. So that's where I would put him right around 10, because you can go then pick up the number 7 wide receiver and be just fine knowing that you have Gronk. And the number 7 wide receiver has just as much opportunity to be in the top 5, but the number 7 tight end literally has no chance of being better than Gronk.
Yeah, position differential. That's what that's called.
Yeah, there you go. That's a cool name.
That's what it's called. And it's actually it's a reason why Gronk always goes earlier than everybody else as a tight end, is because in tight end mandatory leagues, you take the guy when you can get him, and I think even earlier than 10th is okay. Maybe not as high as 4, because you get those 3 receivers off the board. You get your Gurley's, David Johnsons, even like Adrian Peterson I'd probably consider before I took Gronk. But like most of those other wide receivers, here's the nice thing about that 10th pick, Brian. If you're right about that 10th pick, where you're going to take him ahead of where his ADP is, so chances are nobody's going to grab him before you, so you can get him at 10. Then there's the 11th pick, 12th pick, 12th pick, 11th pick. That's 4 picks, and then you pick again.
Yeah.
So then you can pick whoever 11 and 12 didn't take.
You can still get the bottom end of those top-tier receiver running back there at that option.
I like it. I like it a lot. A quick reminder to you that we're going to be preempted pretty soon here by Chicago Cubs baseball, which is fine by me because it's a great listen and a great team. So we're going to give way to Chicago Cubs baseball about quarter till the top of the hour. We do appreciate you listening on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. Those of you downloading us on iTunes and Stitcher, we love you extra special, and we're not going to make you miss a moment of our show. So thank you again for tuning in. Brian, we still have a couple of segments left here, and what I did with the last 2 segments is I'm taking 2 completely opposite approaches to drafting in a snake draft. The one I've dubbed the boring draft, which is just taking safe players typically, and we'll see how that team turns out. And then the last segment will be the high upside draft, in which you're taking guys who are really boom or bust.
I think this is going to be a good conversation. I think we're going to have a good time.
I cannot wait. It's coming right up here on the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 ESPN Radio. The 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio, on iTunes and Stitcher as well. Andy Hall alongside Brian Eikenberry. A couple weeks to go until we officially make it official. So we're getting into draft season for people, and draft strategy. Something you want to think about before you head into your drafts. First and foremost, we've mentioned this before, Brian. Don't make the mistake of getting into a draft and not even knowing your team, your league's scoring system.
That's very true.
I mean, if you're going into a draft and you don't even realize it's a 2-quarterback league, you're in big trouble if you're just planning on drafting like you normally would.
Or you don't realize it's a full point PPR.
Full point PPR is another way. Yeah, another thing that you have to
And
consider.
don't think about your strategy while you're driving there either.
Exactly. Make sure you prep your list of players well in advance and according to what your league scoring is. If your quarterbacks are getting 6 points per touchdown pass, that's going to, be much different than if you're drafting in a league where you only get 4 points per touchdown pass. So, what we've done here in the last 2 segments of today's show is we're giving you polar opposites. 2 different ways you can draft on the extremes. And on one extreme is what I'm calling the boring draft, which is just taking players with a decent ceiling and a very safe floor. Now, Brian, I know there's a way that you know you're going to draft going in.
Right.
How do you typically prepare for that?
So the way I do this and the way I break this up for myself is, am I going to do a boring draft or am I going to get risky? Depends on how much skin I got in the game. What is my entry fee here? Am I just doing some random, let me just do a quick one here off of Yahoo or something? I'm going to be really risky because I want to there's a chance that all of your things hit, you're in the Fantasy Football Hall of Fame. That's pretty cool. If I'm in a full Benjamin, yeah, we're probably going to play it pretty safe. We're going to go with guaranteed. I don't want injuries to blow me out. I want to be very selective and make sure I make the right pick for the right reasons.
Well, let's see if you agree with what I consider the boring draft first.
Snoozer.
In round number 1, the pick is Adrian Peterson. It doesn't get any more safe than that, don't you think?
Yeah, he's not going to get injured. He's going to get 25 touches a game.
And he's probably going to score double-digit touchdowns and, do his usual damage.
Probably.
Nothing in the passing game, so he's probably more valuable in standard leagues.
Yeah, and if it's a down year, it's probably just a few touchdowns.
Round number 2, I take Rob Gronkowski, tight end. Again, we're talking safe here.
Yeah, that's safe. You're legit.
It's boring. Round 3, Demaryius Thomas, wide receiver, Denver.
Yeah, that's pretty boring. He would probably fall that far.
Despite the fact, and he is falling, despite the fact that he's been heavily targeted no matter who's playing quarterback and no matter how good or bad they've been playing, Demaryius Thomas always going to get his.
I would say this. Demaryius Thomas will always catch a couple of screen passes a game, and he always breaks one for 80 yards.
Take it to the house.
So there you go.
Round 4, I'm taking DeMarco Murray.
Yeah, that's the safe bet.
My starting running backs are Peterson and Murray.
Yep. Okay.
Round 5, Eric Decker, wide receiver.
Yeah, that's cool. Round 5, ADP. Yeah.
Is there no more boring guy in wide receiver circles than Eric Decker?
I tell you what, though, he put up some points.
But it's boring because you can guarantee the guy
he's
will put
not
up
going to go crazy.
at least 75 yards receiving and or a touchdown every week.
Yeah, he's not going lower. He's not going bonkers.
Round 6, Larry Fitzgerald, wide receiver.
He's in the same category now.
Yeah.
He really is.
Yeah. You can pretty much bank on him, but he's falling in ADP. Look at we're getting him here in round 6 because he's aging.
Yep.
But he's still in a great offense, and he's still arguably the number 1 receiver there.
But he's getting old.
I know, but people don't like
losing a step.
But that's why he's the boring pick. Round 7, I'm going to go ahead and team Fitzgerald up with Carson Palmer as my starting quarterback. How boring is that?
Yeah, that's pretty boring, but
also
points.
like the number 2 or 3 scoring quarterback in fantasy last year.
But people don't think about that
because
stuff.
he's older.
Because he's older.
But he had a Kurt
and he
Warner
sat
type.
out and threw a pouty fit.
Well, that's all right. Round number 8, I'm taking Deshaun Jackson.
Well, I think that one should be in the risk category.
Maybe
there.
this should be just the old draft.
Yeah, this is the old and crusty draft.
Maybe. Round 9, another running back off the board, LeGarrette Blount. How boring is LeGarrette Blount?
Yeah, but he can pound it in there.
He's going to score some touchdowns, buddy. You watch. He might even go double digit.
He could.
Could I call that on this show?
Yeah, you just did.
LeGarrette Blount going double digit touchdowns.
Okay.
All right. Round 10, another wide receiver, this time Willie Snead, New Orleans.
Yep, that's pretty legit.
1,000-yard receiver, boring as hell.
Yep.
Round 11, I'm taking my backup quarterback, and that's Matthew Stafford.
That's probably the most exciting pick I've heard out of this whole thing.
Well, it's because you're a Lions fan. Otherwise, not that exciting, right?
No, wait a sec. Hold on. Hold on a second.
What, you want to fight about this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. You know Matt Stafford has thrown for some pretty impressive seasons, right?
Right. You know that Calvin Johnson's no longer on the Lions, right?
Yeah, fully aware. You also know that he was one of the best quarterbacks over the last 8 games last year, right?
Right. Calvin Johnson was pretty hot over that same stretch.
Yeah.
But the Lions, man.
Yeah. Come on. No.
But he's boring, right? I mean, be honest. You know what I'm talking about here. But Stafford was always a guy that typically would go, he was one of those mid-round guys before. Now he's a late-round guy all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But it's because Calvin Johnson's
It's because
no longer
Calvin
on the team.
Johnson, everyone's writing him off.
I agree. But I like him
Write
there.
him off. Do it. I dare you.
I just took him, Brian.
Just telling everybody else.
Do you want to fight again?
Yep.
Maybe we'll fight about my 12th round selection, Darren Sproles.
No, that's fine. I would agree with that. That's pretty boring.
It is pretty boring, but here's a guy that actually could put up a pretty good season there in Philadelphia if given the opportunity.
And he might. We were clamoring for it last year.
Round 13, I'm grabbing my defense and special teams. I am taking the New York Jets.
Jets D, huh?
Nobody takes Jets anything anymore, do they?
Well, you just took Decker.
I did. And I love Marshall, and I'm a big fan of that backfield. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick is doable as a number 2 quarterback on your fantasy team. But anyway, the Jets, because, I don't know, they just get the job done year in and year out.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to shut anybody out, but they're also not going to get rung up for 50.
My 14th round, I'm taking Jason Witten, as my backup tight end.
Oh, that is a snoozer there.
If this isn't the most boring pick of all.
This is the old and crusty team, except for Matthew Stafford.
Except for Matthew Stafford. Round 15, and this will be our final round. This is where I take my kicker, and I'm taking Josh Brown, New York Giants.
Outdoor kicker, man. That's exciting.
You want to know something about Josh
took
Brown?
Matt Prater.
No. Took Josh Brown because last year Josh Brown was money. New York Giants were getting into field goal range and just outside of like easy field goal range. So like Josh Brown had a lot of, if you score bonuses for long field goals like a lot of leagues do, Josh Brown was money last year.
I believe on this show I said that to take this guy, he's going to kill it. And I didn't even in my own leagues. I just said it.
But Brian, he's an
outdoor kicker.
He's an outdoor kicker, Brian. You can't take him at your
That's
pick.
risky. That's risky. You need to be taking that in the next segment.
All right, let's run down the team one more time. This is the boring draft. Adrian Peterson. Actually, let's go by position. Carson Palmer, Matthew Stafford. Those are my quarterbacks.
Okay.
Adrian Peterson, DeMarco Murray, LeGarrette Blount, Darren Sproles, running backs.
Boring.
Demarius Thomas, Eric Decker, Larry Fitzgerald, Deshaun Jackson, Willie Snead.
Boring.
Tight ends, Rob Gronkowski, Jason Witten.
Really boring.
Josh Brown, kicker.
Yep.
New York Jets, defense, special teams.
New York. I would say that
Jets,
good Lord.
Jets. All my Jets fans that are listening right now are loving me.
I would say that, yes, that is a satisfactory team to have drafted, and you will be 7-6 or 6-7.
Yeah, it's not going to blow anybody's doors off. I mean, you didn't take any chances at all. You better hope you take some risks in free agency, or you better hope something happens where somebody gets freed up and you get lucky on the waiver wire.
You better hope and you listen to a good podcast.
Yeah, if you listen to a good fantasy football show once in a while, you might go.
Or reach out on Twitter and ask questions for waiver wire and bargain bin pickups. You'd probably be all right.
A couple of hints here and there, guys. Andy, Brian, they know what they're talking about. These two.
IKEFFB.
Yeah. Andy Hall Radio, 515 Fantasy, Twitter. We're on Facebook too. iTunes, Stitcher.
Just two dudes.
Literally all we are, sitting across from each other at a plastic table that Brian picked up at Walmart the other day.
Did I ever?
And I've got wires strewn about. We have our computers in front of us with notes and stuff. But this is what we are, and this is what we're proud to be.
This is what we do.
We thank you for listening. We have one more segment before Chicago Cubs baseball. The pregame is coming up, but we are going to dive into that high upside draft we mentioned coming up here in just a bit. Brian, real quick, going back to the Highlander thing, because now I can't get it out of my head.
You're singing the song, aren't you? Here we are, born to be kings. We're the princes of the universe.
You do know I'm a huge Queen fan.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. So...
But you were a fan of the TV show more so than the movie.
Yeah, totally. I was a TV show guy.
I was a movie guy.
Oh, you're one of those guys?
Well,
Yikes.
yeah, we were there before you were.
Doesn't matter.
I mean, we were the originals, pal. Old school. That's why the boring draft suits me, doesn't it?
That's exactly why.
Highlander, the movie, is the boring draft.
That is.
Oh, man. If we weren't having so much fun, I'd tell you to get lost.
You've tried that, but your dog likes me, so he lets me in.
You're right. My dog does let you in the house. Got to train that dog better. Stop feeding him ribeye. Anyway, stick around. Again, one more segment remains. And, boy, wait till you hear this high upside draft we've got planned for you. You are listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 ESPN Radio, on iTunes and Stitcher as well. We'll be back in just a bit. Final segment of the 515 Fantasy Football Show, at least for this week. Andy Hall, Brian Eikenberry will be back again next Thursday. Same time if you're listening on 1350 AM ESPN Radio, 11 a.m. start. If you're listening to us on iTunes and Stitcher, you can enjoy us whenever you like. And I, personally, like to listen to podcasts while I'm mowing my lawn on the weekends.
Mow your lawn, drive your car, driving into work, driving out of work, walking into your building. Drown out the kids, drown out the wife, drown out the husband, drown out anybody. Crank it up, do it, listen to it. Download it, listen to us on Saturday night, Thursday morning, a week later to stat correct us and fact check us. Do whatever you want to.
You know, there's a reason we chose Thursday. Because once the season gets started, you're going to want to listen to us before you set those lineups. We have Thursday night football now.
Yeah, forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's there. So it is a big deal. It is important to listen right away. Get those bargain bins in. Snipe them off the waiver wire before your weekend starts.
So two opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of draft strategy. You've heard our boring draft. Now it's time to unveil what a high upside draft looks like.
I'm going to pick you apart.
This is pretty much all boom or bust here, and I think you'll agree with every single one of these selections, Brian.
Oh, that's a risky bet.
Not really, man. I kind of know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, 24th year in fantasy football.
Blah, 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 blah.
You've only got 18, I'd like to point out. Over 40 experience, though. You know, over 40 years of experience between the two of us.
Age before beauty.
Thank you. All right. So with the first round pick in our high upside draft, I am taking Odell Beckham Jr.
He's risky?
Yep. I mean,
How?
he hasn't done it for like years upon end.
So I will say this. He kind of is a loose cannon.
And
get
he
himself
also
in
got
trouble.
suspended last year and would have been the number 2 receiver overall. Julio Jones won that last year because of his one suspended game.
Yep, absolutely.
So, yeah, a bit of a risk there, I'd say.
Okay.
Round 2, I'm taking Devontae Freeman.
Yeah, he would go definitely in the high upside. I don't think he's going to have that big year again.
We saw his ceiling. It was last year.
We saw his ceiling. It was week 6.
Well, but last year in general,
Yeah.
that's as high as Devontae Freeman's ever going to get.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe he can get it together for the whole season. Who knows? If he does, yikes.
Yeah, look out. I mean, I would argue that he's kind of undervalued where he's being drafted right now, but I'll take him in the second round. My third round selection is Thomas Rawls.
Yeah, definitely risky there. Definitely, especially in round 3.
We don't know what's going to happen there. I mean, he nursed an ankle injury, which seemed pretty minor for several months
Yeah.
following that season. Round 4 pick is Andrew Luck.
In round 4, yeah. We've discussed that's early, but he's that guy. He could be the next 50 touchdown guy.
Well, he came pretty close a couple of years ago, didn't he?
Yep.
Round 5 selection is Dante Moncrief.
Good grief, Moncrief.
Talk about an upside guy.
Yeah, definitely.
Round 6, I'm taking my tight end, and that would be Kobe Fleener, a guy a lot of folks are talking about.
Yeah, Flea here, Drew Brees, that has the potential to be very, very wicked.
My round 7 selection is my third wide receiver pick, and that's Devontae Parker from Miami.
I think that's just a dumb pick.
Why is that a dumb pick?
Could you pick someone off of Miami?
Yeah, but you don't think this guy's got potential at least to be...
Maybe.
Miami's going to have to throw the ball a lot, especially once Foster gets hurt.
Yeah, I'd say after week 3.
Landry, we know, is a target monster, so he's a guy that's going to eat up a lot of receptions there in Miami, but I think Parker's the go-to guy, so he's the long guy. He's going to be scoring a lot of long touchdowns.
Yeah, okay. All
So,
right.
boom or bust. Round 8, I take Derrick Henry, rookie running back.
Yeah, definitely a boomer bust there. Definitely.
I mean, if that guy gets an opportunity, let's say DeMarco Murray goes down, God forbid.
or he just slows down a little bit.
Derrick Henry, the way he ran in that first preseason game.
Well, they drafted him for a reason, and it would definitely be boomer bust this year.
If he can lay off the Popeyes chicken, he'll be just fine.
Oh, man, some red beans and rice right now.
I'm telling you, those Alabama running backs, man.
Ooh-wee.
They know how to eat.
I would eat some Popeyes like legit right now.
Maybe after the show, Brian. Settle down. Round 9, I'm taking rookie wide receiver Corey Coleman. Cleveland.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Round 10, I'm taking Kirk Cousins as my backup quarterback.
Totally here. I love Cousins. I love what he's doing. I think if those receivers can get a little fountain of youth action, I think he could rip off a good season.
Round 11, another rookie off the board, this time wide receiver Michael Thomas, New Orleans.
Oh, for sure. For sure. This guy he's on my radar.
Round 12, another running back off the board, this time Baltimore's Terrence West.
Yep, Terrence West. We talked about him earlier. I think it's his time to shine. I think it's his job to lose.
What is this, 2012?
Yeah.
Terrence West.
But nobody else is there.
He
Nobody
came
else
out of
is
nowhere.
Yeah, it's
He was with
happen.
Cleveland at one point, wasn't he?
Was it Cleveland?
Yeah, I think it was.
Uh,
Wow. All right, so round 13, here's where I take my defense. I'm taking the Los Angeles Rams. They've got some playmakers, especially up front.
Following the boomer bust trend, they have to be consistent, and I think if they could be consistent, they could be a top 5 D.
Round 14, yet another rookie, this time running back Paul Perkins, New York Giants. I mean, consider Rashad Jennings is your competition.
And that's the thing. If the Giants' playbook is tweaked a little bit, or the percentage of play calling tweaks a little bit, that could be huge for him.
And my final pick is kicker Blair Walsh, Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, dude boots him from 50 like a champ.
You have to count on the fact that Minnesota isn't going to reach the end zone. That's your boomer bust right there.
Yeah, so when I'm looking at a good point getter is whose offense sucks.
Is that it? I mean, you don't want a team that never gets past the 50. Like, you wouldn't want to take the Niners kicker this year.
So everyone knows I want indoor kickers.
So you definitely wouldn't take Robbie Gould,
No.
Chicago.
No.
Because they're going to be terrible too.
I am uninterested in outdoor kickers.
By the way, that was for all my Bears fans that are listening. I got some crap for what I said about Chicago Bears fans in the last episode. But they were fun. It was fun, though. They were just poking fun.
Enjoy your time in the cellar, friends.
Have fun taking Jay Cutler in the 4th.
Yeah.
All right.
It's so true. They're mad because
That's
it's
a high
true.
upside pick. Come on.
No, it's not. Not anymore.
Sorry, you were saying.
Kicker indoor, and I'm going to look for a stalling offense. Those are easy statistics. You look at red zone offense, what are their conversion, what is their percentages, and make that. That's usually pretty historical data.
So running down again our high upside draft, Andrew Luck, Kirk Cousins are my 2 quarterbacks. Devontae Freeman, Thomas Rawls, Derrick Henry, Terrence West, Paul Perkins are my running backs. My receivers are Odell Beckham, Dante Moncrief, Devontae Parker, Corey Coleman, Michael Thomas. My tight end is Kobe Fleener. I only took 1. That's risky. My kickers, Blair Walsh. My defense, the Los Angeles Rams. Let's compare and contrast real quick. Which one do you like better, the boring draft we did in the last segment, or do you like the high upside draft?
I like the boring draft in this one better, just because I think it has a lot more, obviously, consistency in it. But I'll look outside the box and say the boring draft stuck more with consistent ADPs, whereas a risky draft was really kind of pushing it up a couple of rounds.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm looking at both teams, which one would I rather take? I'd probably rather take the boring team. But that said, even I don't agree with all the picks in that draft. And, remember, you're drafting with other people, too. There is such thing as human error.
Yeah, there's human error, and definitely, when you think about it, you're not going to take risky picks all the way through, but it is fun to kind of sit back and theorize what it would look like if you just said, you know what, let me just roll the dice on every single pick I have.
Fun show. Brian and I always enjoy interacting with you on our Facebook page, 515 Fantasy Football, on Twitter at 515 Fantasy, our individual accounts at Andy Hall Radio, at Ike FFB, at IKEFFB. Anything else you want to add before we close out another program?
I just want to remind everybody, we love interacting. Come out, reach out, like us, rate us, all that fun stuff. It lets us know we're doing a good job. And, hey, we've only got a couple more weeks of preseason. Submit a segment idea to us. If you want us to talk about why Jay Cutler should not be drafted anywhere, period, you know what? I can go into a 10-minute essay on that one.
One of our dedicated listeners who's been with us since last year has already made a suggestion of
excellent.
a segment. So
what do we have?
We're going to implement that in next week's show.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to it.
Aaron, thank you very much for the suggestion, and we welcome anybody else.
Buddy, man.
Yeah, he is. He's our good guy at Big Papa MCC.
Yeah, that's right.
On Twitter. So thank you again for listening. The 515 Fantasy Football Show, of course, always available Thursdays, 11 a.m. on 1350 AM ESPN Radio in Des Moines, also on iTunes and Stitcher. For Brian Eikenberry, I'm Andy Hall. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.